So I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships to order at 2:03 p.m. You've received the agenda and the first order of business.
Sorry about that. I admitted person. It's hard to know who to admit, so I just admit everybody, and then but I can kick them out of the meeting. So if that happens again, I'll just kick them out of the meeting.
Well, we try to make the meeting open to people. I think it makes perfect sense to have tried to do that. Donna is coming. There's Alicia. Okay.
All we can do is the best we can do.
And I must say, I know it's happened to other people. This is the first time it's happened to me. So that
Me too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was
Yeah,
really
first time.
terrible.
No,
It says that there's
nothing-
another Janet trying to enter. Is that you, Janet, or is that somebody else?
Not me, because I'm here and I've
Okay.
put my hand on you.
Okay.
I'm seeing no image of who Janet is. Mine is listed as Janet Kramer.
Or Jeanette.
Well, I see Jeanette here is on my.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. There's a little more exposure than we needed.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead? Donna will join us as soon as she
Okay.
can. The review of the minutes from November 15th, 2021.
I move that be accepted.
Do I hear a second? Thank you, Byron. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Unfortunately, I have to see. Christopher, I'm in the middle of a meeting and I cannot call you now. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. What it is to have a phone on your wrist. It's still just, it's still unsettling. I think, all those in favor of approving the minutes from November 15th, please raise your hand. Aye.
Okay.
Okay, now second, resident and citizen participation. I have a feeling that the person was there was not necessarily a citizen.
I don't think so.
And numbers 4 on the agenda, COVID-19 update.
Yes, so we are following the town's guidelines, and we have continued our mask mandate for all of our housing sites. We are leaving we have closed some community spaces, which don't allow for social distancing, but we've continued to keep some of our community rooms open specifically so residents may utilize them especially during the holiday season, if they have visitors they would like to visit with them in a space that's bigger so that they can social distance as long as everybody is wearing masks.
Great.
So we put a lot of thought into that because some people really wanted us to close the community rooms. However, then there really wasn't a place for people to go where there was a mask mandate. And I know it's hard for some residents to ask their family members to wear masks in their apartment.
Okay. Staff reports and review, property managers. I try to hold these up for you. that Red Clover 2 is completely leased up is wonderful. There are have the 4 units in Red Clover 1 been filled now?
No, we're continuing to fill them. We have gotten information from Vermont State Housing. That has been our biggest holdup. So we did communicate with them earlier in the month, and they have been proactive about sending us the information that we need. So we're hopeful to get those filled. However, we have 3 new vacancies at the housing site. So.
Okay. Donna, glad you got on.
Well, I've been on, but I couldn't get my video to work, so
Ah.
I don't know.
Glad to see your face. Right. Okay. And we're property managers report is as well. Were people able to access the federal money to catch up on delinquent rents?
Yes, we've had many who have. I think Courtney had in her report that we've so far received $62,978, which is a lot of money. So that has been great. We still are working with some people who are slow to apply. For those people, we have sent it to legal, and that has tended to motivate people to apply.
Okay. Resident wellness and services report. Actually, the news bulletin I want to share with you is when I went to sign checks last Friday, discovered that their new employee, Estelle Reynolds, on her 3rd day there, needed to get into the storage room where I was working. So we had a chance to meet her. She seems very nice.
She's wonderful. She's great. She's quick and she's picking up on everything. It's going to be a huge benefit to the occupancy team. We're really excited to have her. She's been really nice.
Then we will look at the Wellness and Services Monthly Board Report. Are people being able to access online generally? Because I know one of the things that you were working on was bringing Wi-Fi into each of, I think, Red Clover apartments.
Yes, so Red Clover Commons has Wi-Fi in there throughout the building of 1 and 2, as does Samuel Elliott Apartments, which is great, as does the community room at Hayes Court.
So that if people need to use the internet, they can go to the community room in Hayes Court for that.
Yeah, Hayes Court is tricky because all the buildings are separated. So it's going to be a bigger project to get Wi-Fi in each building.
Okay. I see Alicia nodding on all of this. Are you able to access some clients there? That's great.
Well, my mom, but yeah.
Oh, your mom, of course. I'm glad that works for your mom as well as for all of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the sash flash again is always so good looking. This time turkey pot pie bake on the back. This was certainly a not make it from scratch, but make it from easy things to purchase.
Yep.
Yes, Byron. Byron has a question.
Sorry, Byron, yes.
You're muted, Byron.
Byron, you need to turn your microphone on. There you go. Now, what was your question?
It's just, why doesn't everybody who's eligible sign up for SASH?
I'm not sure. They have the choice to sign up. Everyone that lives at the housing sites are automatic participants, so they can participate in any of the programming, but to be fully enrolled, you have to sign up.
It seems such a good thing.
It is a really great thing. I think a lot of people sign up when they need it, and then they don't keep their use and disclosure active after a year. And so people come on and off a lot.
Remember when I was the chair of, used to be um, Council on Aging for Southeastern Vermont before it became Senior Solutions. The complaint from the executive director was nobody wants to learn about aging until it's right on top of them, and they need to learn these things instead of being proactive. I think that's partly what's happening for SASH as well.
I think it happens for all of us, every age group.
Well, I had the advantage of being the youngest of a 4th-generation household, so I did a lot of passive learning before I did some intentional learning. So can we move to the Housing Choice Voucher Administrator, Shelter Plus Care, Transition for Housing report? Any comments, questions?
Beginning to get a feel for what it all for what all the things mean.
Yes. Well, I'm glad he described the various vouchers because it really makes a big difference.
It does.
And then the financial review. The October comparables, November check listing, which is the green. So comments, I think Christine, I would really appreciate some of your comments, if there are some, on the monthly budget comparison.
Sure. So just a few things to point out. So the budget, so James and I have been really thinking about, we've been really looking at this as a multi-year process because we really weren't sure how to estimate for the rents, because we were going to RAD. We had a new system in place for making sure that you receive these reports every month. And so when we did the budget, we're still learning. So when you look at the budget, it actually looks like our rental income is great compared to what we had identified, because I think we sort of estimated a little low on purpose, which is good. So that's just one thing to notice. It doesn't mean that we've collected all the rents. It means that compared to what we had budgeted for the year, we're doing better than we thought. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing I would sort of point out. The second thing, under our operating subsidy, we did draw this down. So this was drawn down after this was done. So we are on target. So that isn't a deficit under revenue. I'm just looking at the first page.
Yeah.
In terms of office expenses, so our office expenses are very high. That includes everything from our internet, Wi-Fi at our property sites, all of the different expenses we have. So I think that we've really thought about the idea of doing an overall audit. We haven't gone in and really looked at all our Verizon accounts and our cell phones and all of these pieces. And so I think that's a project that we want to dive into in this next year after January, to really say, like, what are our expenses and why are these so high? Because maybe that is what they're going to cost us, but I'm just making sure that we haven't, there's nothing that we're paying for that we don't necessarily use. We've changed from, Steve Holly, our IT person, has left. So we've gone to Europa. We had worked with them a lot for our IT over the years. They were our backup for Steve. So Steve's helping remotely a little bit, but they're helping. And so really to evaluate what the cost will be. So that's just something for you to keep an eye on. And just so you know that that's something we're thinking about. And then outside of that, just the debt on the bottom, those are the trucks. So we bought 3 new trucks. And so that's just the payoff of what we're paying off on the trucks themselves.
Christine?
Yeah.
I was wondering if it might be helpful on the budget of maybe adding a category for technology or IT related, so that you don't have such a big, huge category for office. You've got so many things in there that maybe office should really be about
Breaking down. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I don't
And I
know.
think he lumps, I think that's a great idea, and I will suggest that for just the technology piece, but he lumps everything together, but we are able to break it down ourselves because we do, so, but I think that that's a really good idea.
Because I know like on the banking side, we've got an IT piece that talks about internet and anything needed technology wise to run the bank. And then office, it would be more about salaries, office supplies. And even sometimes those are broken out where salaries are broken out and then office supplies, you know what I'm saying? You might be able
Yeah,
to get a better grip on, and it wouldn't be quite so confusing and cumbersome for you.
yeah, and our salaries are broken out, but the office expenses themselves are not, and so that's, I think we need to break them down to really understand where things are going.
In past years, we have had to partialize all of these office expenses and salaries and so forth, divide them among the various programs. That doesn't seem to need to happen now, which was much easier.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it would be good for us to dive in and look at it. I think we just need to dive in and sort of, some of those accounts, had been set up a while ago, just making sure that we're not duplicating anything. Especially during COVID, we set up certain programs for different things, like Zoom, but also GoToMeeting, just making sure that everyone's using what, maybe we just, do one instead of both, or. And then outside of that, the breakdown of the properties, I think also if you look at the rent for the breakdown of the RAD properties on each page, you'll see that the rents are pretty much in line. It's not that there's one property that's doing terrible compared to the rest. So that's really helpful. The only other note I would say is that, our Section 8 program, we're going to be utilizing more funds because we're using 18 vouchers for the RCC2 building. And so that will really start to show up in the next month. I think I did receive the November comparable after we had sent this. So that should have an RCC2 budget in it as well.
Okay, good.
And then you'll see Melrose sort of go because we won't have it the same.
The Section 8 administrative fee is much of what we have used. I mean, the administrative fees generally to support the administrative work that we do.
Yes. Yep.
So, any more comments from the board? Donna, thank you for your thoughtful
Yeah,
suggestion.
thank you. It's helpful.
Listings?
So Byron did send me a question about just check positive, just making sure that we had a system in place for our checks and also our ACH. And we do pay a fee for check positives. I think we had talked about this a couple of months ago, but for all of our ACHs and our checks, we have a process with the bank where we have to confirm that we have made those in those checks and made those ACH withdrawals.
And because I was doing checks this month, there is one very large check on the back of the green, which is to Zaluzny Excavating for the work that's being done out of Melrose Terrace.
And the good news is we have been submitting our bills to FEMA, so we've been getting reimbursed pretty quickly, so that's helpful.
Wonderful. That's good to know. Check signing assignments for January, February, and March.
I'd like to take February.
Okay,
I can try January. I just have to do it outside.
you
in my
sure?
car.
Okay,
I asked my doctor, he just said outside in your car.
okay.
I could do March.
All right, thank you, Byron.
Great.
Great, so Donna will do January outside with very warm mittens, and Liz February, and Byron in March.
Sounds
And
great.
that's wonderful. Lisha, for you, will you be able to get away early in the morning, say on Friday mornings, if you are doing it, say in April?
Well, I spoke to, I spoke about it with Billy Joe about the possibility of doing it Thursday nights if she knows ahead of time. So that's very doable for me,
Great.
as long as it's, after 4:30.
Right.
Just run over there real quick.
I remember going up there at 6 p.m., which worked out just fine, and she was great about that.
Yeah, I've done it Thursdays before too.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
so I have it, they only had January, February, and March, but having proposed April to Alicia.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I can do that. I can also be backup if anyone needs me to.
Okay,
Great,
thank
thank
you.
you. We have, we really can be flexible. I think even if Billy Joe's not here, I'm happy to stay late or somebody, we can figure it out.
Okay, the next on our agenda is continued projects. And we've talked a little about the Melrose Terrace flood mitigation. You want to talk a little more about that, Christine?
Yeah, so we have been really, we've lucked out with the weather for sure. So we really thought that this project was going to shut down for the winter earlier, and we have not. We are now thinking that the project will shut down sometime this week, which has been great. They're still continuing to work today. We've gotten a considerable amount done. They've completed the downstream floodplain stabilization. So that whole land that's further downstream, the downstream part of the property is stabilized for the winter. They've removed the retaining wall, and they have added mulch and winter rye, and they've covered the I can never think of the right word for this. Sorry, I'm gonna look. The riprap. I always feel like I'm saying the wrong thing. So they created the riprap, they've covered it, so that whole area is stabilized, and now they're continuing to work upstream by taking out the remaining foundations, and they've been working on that this week. So that's great. We've delivered the manhole covers to sites. We're just really, they're getting just a tremendous amount done. So we're in very, very good shape for the spring. So see.
It's wonderful. I mean, it makes me very much aware of what we need to do to replace the bridge. But they've already prepared the alternate roadway.
Yeah. And they won't be replacing the bridge, but they'll be putting a culvert in. So yeah.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a tremendous amount of time, which is great. We also have invited river conservatories out to look at the property, and we've had some real interest in taking over and interest in that. So we're continuing to have those conversations with them. So
Next major project.
oh, but before we go forward, I did send you as well the
Development agreement.
the development agreement. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. We did hire an attorney to review it for us, and we went back and forth with the town attorney somewhat. But and I think that we landed in a really good place. And so I would need permission to attend the select board meeting in January, and to if the select board agrees to this agreement, then to sign it on behalf of BHP.
I so move.
Thank you. And Mark, a second. Thank
A
you.
question.
Your question.
We're talking about the roadway discontinuance and so on.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't fully understood this before, but now, having read this agreement, I really have trouble understanding. It's late to ask, but why this is Brattleboro Housing Partnership's responsibility. I mean, it's a kind of project usually left to the town and the state.
Mhm.
And I guess my concern is I don't see how we have the appropriate staff or experience to deal with all of this.
It's a great question, Byron. So we have hired an engineer. So an engineer has been working with us on this project since the beginning. So if we think back a little bit, so FEMA asked us to be part of this project. There were several projects throughout the state, and FEMA wanted this to be one of the projects. So you're absolutely right. It's a little bit of a stray from our mission as housing. However, getting this work done will be a real asset to Brattleboro housing, because we could potentially reutilize the land if it was reallocated in the floodplain, out of the floodplain. And based on the information from when we were struggling to find a housing site for RCC2, I think it would be very challenging for Brattleboro housing to acquire a new property to develop. And so this is really an area that we would like to continue to house at some point, if it were out of the floodplain. It won't be public housing. It won't probably be the same. It would, that will be a thing that we will begin to talk about with community members to see what they would like to see here. So you're right, it's a little bit off of the stray. However, the board and the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships from years past really decided that this was something that they really felt like was an important thing to do. Also, because we couldn't leave the project, we just couldn't leave the abandoned houses. We need to do something. And so by collaborating with FEMA and having this agreement, we've been able to utilize FEMA funds to do the majority of the work. And then the other funds have been funds that were directly allocated to this property site. There were capital funds only for Melrose Terrace, which we could no longer use because this development was in demo and dispo already. I don't know if that helps.
I appreciate that explanation.
Yeah.
Catches me up for the history.
And so the road that's going to be removed, we're removing a lot of the non-permeable land. So the roadway that's being removed will be part of the flood mitigation project. And then there's a new piece of road that will be going through the property. And so this agreement really is talking about the idea that once the project is finished, the town will take over the remaining utilities that run through the project itself, the sewer lines and the water lines, and that they will continue to plow the whole roadway for Brattleboro housing. And we will just be responsible for the pieces that are any sidewalk or parking areas.
The removal and replacement of some highway and stormwater, water and sewer lines, it will be up to us to accomplish that work.
That is part of the FEMA plan that we have been, that's part of the plan that we've always had in place, is that yes, we're putting those pieces in place with the town and with the engineer that was hired and approved for the project.
Okay.
This goes back really to Tropical Storm Irene and to the work that we did to validate with FEMA that they needed to support our work to make this property, I won't say whole, but at least to use it in a way. We can't use it for public housing because it's in a floodplain.
Yeah.
If they do declare, because of the work we've done, that the property is usable for something other than housing, I think what this does is make it available to the town in a way that will support both the town and Brattleboro housing.
Okay.
I second the motion that Liz made the first.
Thank you. And the reason I didn't bring this up before, because I still had strategic planning and Brattleboro housing opportunities under continuing projects, but it's just as well that if this review, the proposed development agreement come up now.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
That's why, that's where to go. That's why we have a motion, and it has been seconded, and the motion will authorize Executive Director Hazzard to sign an agreement with the town of Brattleboro. Any more discussion? Okay, If you're ready for the vote, all those in favor, please say aye, raise a hand.
Aye.
Say, any opposed? Any abstaining? So you're abstaining, Byron?
Yes.
Okay. I want to go back to strategic planning.
So Maggie Foley has created a draft we've reviewed. She's primarily finished with her, the biggest piece of her work.
Yes.
And now will be time that we as a board will need to set a time to meet with her
Mhm.
to review the additional information and then finalize the strategic plan.
Okay.
So we can do that during our executive
Do that
session.
during the executive session, great. And then Brattleboro Housing Opportunities moving to work.
So the information that I mailed you to be added to your board packet, Jeanette has also joined us.
Good.
Sorry, I'm looking for it now. We have made the, oh, she's joining us.
Good.
Jeanette, do you want to kick it off and describe the steps that have gone into this?
Need to put your microphone on. No. You're still muted. There you go.
Thanks. So what Christine sent you here is there are 3 things that have to happen before you submit the supplemental plan. There has to be public opportunity, participation and opportunity for common review. And the participation has to happen by different groups. And then has to be board approval. So you all have this that Christine sent, right? So the first part, the B, is what was posted. There's A, B, and C on here, and A just tells you what is needed. Then, and it was posted on the website on November 5th, and the narrative was, then it was noticed in the Reformer on both November 8th and November 10th. And so far, there have been no public comments at all.
Okay.
And then the participation came from, a lot of it was pulled out of the strategic planning process. There was a meeting with the Resident Advisory Communications Committee, I believe that's what it's called, and with the MTW Community Advisory Committee. And they'll all be part of the submittal, the final submittal, the summary of each of those. We didn't put it in here because it's comments, and anybody can, I can send it to anybody if you're interested in what people had to say, but it will be part of the final submittal.
Yes.
So then B is the narrative that was, that we've been using all along. It was what was posted for public comment. And it really just is a narrative of what we're going to be doing. And then C is, I tried to put this together in a way that made some sense to you, because the submittal of the supplemental plan is actually a PDF, and it's, so you put your activity 1 in there, and then it asks you a whole bunch of questions about activity 1. And what I tried to do here is put under each of the 3 activities, what would, the questions that needed to be answered. And for example, like activity 1 is changing the re-examination period from 1 year to 3 years. I don't know what's happened to my camera here, but sorry about that. So that's the narrative. And then there's a question, which statutory requirement is being met, and it's cost effectiveness. Remember, there are 3: cost effectiveness, housing option choices, and self-sufficiency. And then it asks, what are the cost implications? And so those questions are questions that are asked for each of the activities. And I just tried to put them in here. There are a lot of other questions like have you changed any of the which families and sites are being addressed here? Well, no, we haven't changed anything because this is our first one. So
Right.
there are a lot of them that address
Mhm.
that you'll be doing in years 2 and 3. And if you'll notice, I found on here, when Christine gave this back to me, I found 5 typos. So I'm sure some of you picked up those typos, but that's what that is. So it's activity 1. Activity 2 is allowing for self-certification of assets under 50,000. And activity 3 is the inspections for the HCV units.
Right.
And just to tell you what a safe harbor is, if you're going beyond what's allowed in the waiver that is given to you. For example, the waiver allows you to go every 3 years for reexaminations. If you decide you want to go every 5 years, you have to apply for a safe harbor waiver.
Okay.
So anything that you do, or if you wanted to go to the self-certification of assets under $75,000, you'd have to ask for a safe harbor waiver. And we aren't doing anything that requires one. And 2 of them require an impact analysis, and that really has to do with the use of staff and why we're doing this and how it'll impact our larger goals.
Seems to make perfect sense, as much as government requirements can make perfect sense.
The instructions for the submitting the plan itself are, and I just went through them again this morning, it's 29 pages. So, but we don't have to answer a lot of them because we're not asking for rent reform, for example, or a number of those things. If ever BHP gets to the point of asking for some of those waivers, then they'll be part of the new supplemental plan.
Okay. And do we need to approve this? I don't see it in the agenda.
Not for today, but this was just in case anybody had any comments at this meeting.
Okay, and this is in some ways another piece of the community review.
Yeah, and I think that we just wanted to make sure that you were really on board with the direction we're going and everything. And there will be a public hearing set for, when is it, Christine? I think it's-
January 14th.
Okay.
Is it January 14th?
It's the same as our board meeting.
And then it has to be submitted right away.
Mhm.
So you'll approve it on
In January.
January 14th, and you'll take into consideration any of the public comments, of which there have been none, that have been put forth so far. And then you'll approve it, and then it'll get submitted.
Okay.
Really like it.
Byron?
At the risk of misreading or just being obstreperous, it just seemed to me that what we filed in December a year ago, described as first-year plan, is the similar activities described in the new plan for 2022 are described again as year 1 activities.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
You haven't started yet. What you submitted before was your intent. And what you thought you were going to do in year 1. Then in January, you got your approval letter saying you were indeed an MTW cohort 1 agency. So then you had, you signed your certificate of, I don't remember what it's called, but you signed
Of participation, I think,
Huh?
certificate of participation.
Yeah,
The ACC, it was the ACC.
yes, you signed that and said that we accept this, we're going to be a moving to work agency, and now you have to submit your plan for year one. You haven't started year one yet. That's why it all looks the same, because your year one won't start until April 1st.
So it's just as well that what Byron saw and what we are submitting now are the same.
Very good, yes.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
signed the annual contributions contract later in the year.
Yes.
Because the board intentionally did that because we had two large projects underway. And we didn't want to begin this project. We wanted to get approved for moving to work, but we didn't want to move forward with the first year until we were finished with RCC 2, the relocation, and we began the FEMA project.
And most agencies submit their moving to work supplemental plan as part of, at the same time as their regular annual plan, which is what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other thoughts, questions?
And you will notice that year one it's mainly a few administrative changes, but it's going to make a huge difference in the way the time that people have to devote. So it's going to eliminate 10 to 12 weeks of staff time. That's huge.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that it asks people to be as self-sufficient as they can, not needing to attest officially to something over 5,000 to 50,000.
Yeah.
That makes such a difference.
Gosh.
And I just will point out one typo in here that could be very misleading. It's under activity 1, it's under impact policy required. And it talks about using staff time. All the others are typos. And it talks about using staff time and creating 3 groups of residents, and each will be re-examined every 3rd year. And it says this will allow us to conduct re-examinations on half of our residents every year. It's actually a 1/3.
Third, right.
Yeah.
That's
That was,
simple enough change. And I trust in the final document, it will be changed.
it already has been.
That's what I was assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will also, so it will save us a lot of time, but it will also save our residents a lot of time and anguish, because the recertification process is pretty cumbersome for some.
Yes. Knowing that there are times when recertification also is a time of looking at the tendency to hoard. Is there going to be a way of looking at the way the apartments are maintained, which often is part of the recertification?
You mean the inspecting of the apartments?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
I don't know. Inspecting the apartments didn't
That may not
come
be
up as part of it, but I mean, an inspection can happen at any time if it's requested by a tenant or a landlord, and a re-examination can happen anytime that a resident income is reduced by 10% over a 30-day period, or their expenses are increased by 10% over a 30-day period. So it isn't just that every 3 years it's going to happen and never again.
Okay, very good. And we don't need to vote on it. So I think we have come to a potential motion to enter into executive session. Thank you, Jeanette.
I'll enter a motion.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I think Liz raised her hand. All those in favor of entering executive session, please say aye. Or-
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, who made the motion to adjourn?
Liz,
Okay.
and I moved too quickly for you and Alicia seconded it. Thank
Okay,
you
great.
all for a very thoughtful discussion.
Yeah, thank you all and happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful
Yes.
holiday. Yeah.
All of you.